Hello and welcome to the Finding Sacramento podcast. You're listening to episode number 27 with Bobby Mull and Zach Nelson of Zeal Kombucha.
Come on, man.
Journalism.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
What about?
Yeah, it's a bunch of nerds interrupting people who know what they're doing. Get out of there.
Hello and welcome to the Finding Sacramento podcast. My name is Nathan Miller and thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to my show. Today's episode is episode number 27 with Bobby Mull and Zach Nelson of Zeal Kombucha. We chat about how success and failure lessons in the music industry can transfer to running a business, why starting a business may be the new path for artists versus waiting tables and making art and just hoping to make it, why packaging matters just as much, if not more, than the taste of your product, what led to Zeal Kombucha's rather instant success, why corporations getting into your sector of business isn't always a bad thing, the process of making vanilla pine kombucha, Zeal's kombucha made from pine needles, and why you should just focus on making the things you want to make and make it really great. If you are new to the show, be sure to check out past episodes of the show featuring local businesses like Bacon and Butter, South, One Speed Pizza, V. Miller Meats, Plant Foundry, Sac Brew Bike, Big Tree Comics, and more at FindingSacramento.com. Also, if you want to get new episodes of the Finding Sacramento podcast automatically each week, be sure to hit the subscribe button on whatever listening device you happen to be listening to the show with, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, etc. Finally, if you like the show, please do me a huge favor and spread the word to other folks who might also like the show, or better yet, go out and support the 26 businesses that have been featured on this very podcast. Bobby and Zach. It takes me a while to get into the groove of this interview, but when we start rolling, I think this turned out to be a pretty great chat. It is pretty clear in this interview that Bobby and Zach are not only proud of their product, but also confident that their product can sell. Kombucha is a $600 million a year industry, and that means large corporations like PepsiCo are starting to get into the kombucha game. And despite the pressure of competition, especially from corporations, Bobby and Zach keep their head down and do what they do best, which is make art, and their art just happens to be different flavors of kombucha. I think why former artists like Bobby and Zach, or even Molly and Tatiana of Sun and Soil Juice Company, who appeared on episode 12 of this very podcast, the reason why those former artists are successful entrepreneurs is because, as artists, they are used to producing art for the sake of doing art and for the sake of having something to say. And when you're used to creating for yourself, you don't necessarily have the instinct to compare what you do with others because it's coming from you. And of course, it will be different than what others could produce because you are not other people. So despite large corporations getting into the kombucha game, Bobby and Zach's business is ready to compete because what they do with their flavors and how they make kombucha is different than their competition by nature because they set out to make kombucha in a unique way that channels their creativity, and that is very hard for a corporation like PepsiCo to copy. Ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Mull and Zach Nelson of Zeal Kombucha. Okay, Bobby, you're originally from Phoenix?
I am, yes.
Yeah, and what does it mean to be from Phoenix?
Hot summers, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in California for, I think, almost 15 years.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, Phoenix is nice.
Yeah.
I like going there and visiting.
Mm-hmm. And why were you there? What was your parents' gig?
My dad works in air conditioning and heating.
Okay.
And my mom's a teacher. And I left there to go to school, study photography in Santa Barbara. And worked my way to Sacramento.
So you're fortunate to have a mom that was a teacher, so she was supportive of your art interests.
Yes.
Yeah. Any interest in Dad's air conditioning job growing up?
I mean, a little, just because it's definitely, that's a good place to have an air conditioning business. Sure.
But did not want to pursue Mom's teaching gig at all?
No, not really.
And did the high school version of yourself definitely think you wanted to be a photographer?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what was the interest in that?
Traveling. I really like taking photos. I was definitely interested in photojournalism.
Yeah.
A little bit of commercial work. I think it was actually going to school for photography that made me realize I did not want to be a career photographer.
Yeah. Yeah. What's wrong with that? So, like, I have my students introduce themselves all the time about why they pursued the career path that they did. And of course, the photography one is always, I want to be a National Geographic photographer. So what's the downside of that?
I don't really know. I mean, for me, I think it just something changed for me, and I realized I did not really want to pursue that as a career.
Yeah.
I still take photos, but I just kind of, my desire to seek that as a career just kind of changed.
And is it just the minutia of travel, or?
No, I think that was the part I was really interested in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really know what kind of changed. It was quite a while ago. Something definitely changed, or I just I didn't really want to pursue that. I think that I love it as a hobby. Yeah. And I think that's what I realized, that it's a good hobby for me.
And what would your Santa Barbara visual journalism degree have to say about now that everybody is a visual journalist?
Yeah, well, I did not finish that school. But I definitely learned a lot.
Wait, what did you just say?
Now that everyone is a visual journalist.
You mean because everyone has cameras?
Yeah. Well, everybody considers themselves visual journalists.
Yeah. And I definitely, it taught me how to be a critic of photography.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for the technical elements that I've learned. And I do use some of those in what we're doing.
Yeah. How so?
Just like social media, Instagram, any photos that we take, I just kind of like rely on myself to take them.
They go through a rigorous process of being chosen.
Yeah.
I'm kind of joking, but like he always takes like, I think like the best photographs. So it's not like it's just like some rando photo of just like somebody, it's like thought out pre.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's cool. It's like being presented to everybody. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there.
Oh, it's all good.
Really good photographs.
It's all good. So when you decide photography is not for you and you bail, where do you bail to, and for what?
I came to Sacramento. I knew a few people here, and moved up having never been here before, and got jobs in cafes mainly. Worked at a bunch of cafes, a few restaurants, and I guess that's kind of.
Yeah. Were you doing photography for the SNR and on the side?
Yeah, I was. Yep. Up until somewhat recently, actually. Yeah. Minimal, but that was kind of what kept me in it in a commercial way.
And before we get to the kombucha stuff, I did notice that you paired sounds with still images.
That's true.
And I was trying to wrap my head around what I'm supposed to experience when taking that in. So explain to me that art form.
Yeah, a sound was definitely something else that I would pursue in another hobby of mine. Yeah. And I think the project that you're talking of is still images of musicians, and there's a field recording to accompany that. Yeah,
so for Zach's that you did, right, there's like a blurry formation of Zach's in there somewhere. And then is it Zach's music that's playing?
Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of like a collector-selector project. Yeah. So I recorded musicians for a duration of time and then kind of edited the best, like 3 to 5 minutes. And Zach has one. It's like a bird's eye view, like looking down from like a old chandelier with him playing in this old house.
Is beautiful. Was I wearing a hat? I think I was wearing a hat or something.
Maybe.
And is the idea that since it's a still image the whole time, you want the person that's viewing it to let their imagination run wild?
I think so, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
if it was a video, it would still just kind of look the same. There would just be slight action there. So I think you can kind of check in with the image every once in a while, or just listen to the recording of it. It kind of just gives it a visual like representation, very minimal. So really, the focus is more on the sound than on the photo.
Yeah. Zach, are you originally from Illinois?
Yes.
And if you could lean up into that microphone for me. Where in Illinois?
Wait, I think also I thought of his project that was neat, that it's kind of like a sound photograph.
Yeah.
Which is kind of slightly abstract, but I think that's neat. Just in support of that art project.
Yeah.
I'm from Southern Illinois.
Yeah. Where at?
A town called El Dorado.
Uh-huh. And what are people doing in El Dorado?
Probably raising some hail.
Yeah.
Probably down at Rector Creek Bridge, spray painting something wild. It's like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
A lot of sweet people, but there's not a lot to do either. So I'm not really for sure. Just on a scientific reality level, I have no idea what anybody's doing right now except what's going on here. But
Yeah.
I bet some people are going to Walmart to get some stuff. I bet you somebody's probably eating at this new barbecue truck I heard my mom told me about.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. There's not really a lot to do. So I was just looking at some old videos. I've been videotaping since I was a child, and man, it's just like you had to keep your imagination running.
Yeah.
Or you'd go crazy, I think.
Yeah.
Or people do go crazy.
My graduating class had 27 students. My next door neighbor was 3 miles away. So, in small town Kansas. So my only familiarity with Southern Illinois is we used to debate SIU quite frequently. But
an hour from there, that's where I grew up, was an hour from Carbondale.
Yeah. And were your parents farmers? What's going on in there?
No. My mom is an artist and a substitute teacher, and a good grandma. And my father's retired principal of that small town of 5,000.
That's interesting. You both have supportive parents, huh?
Yeah.
Or is that an assumption?
No, it's true, I think.
Yeah.
We're kind of, I feel like it's kind of lucky nowadays. Like, I love talking to my parents. I think without without the love and support, I'd be, who knows where I'd be.
Yeah.
Because I have different ideas, and I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
You find out pretty quickly when you don't think or act like other people.
Right.
So I got out of there, and I moved to Santa Barbara as well. We have some connection there. It's really interesting. So I graduated high school and was like, went to
What's the worst that looked like? Like, what was the realization that you knew you weren't like everybody else?
The worst? Oh, probably just like stuff that doesn't really matter. Like when you're on your deathbed thinking about life, like acting up in high school is probably not going to be a big deal to me.
Yeah.
But stuff like that where or I don't know. I got to travel to different places in the world, and I think that helped me, like going to flea markets with my grandparents and just doing different trips, going to Chicago, seeing like a huge city. Some people never even go 6 hours north.
Yeah.
And check that out. So I think I got a little taste of some stuff that other people didn't. So it made me more, I wanted more. I wanted to go to California.
Yeah. Some of my classmates have still not left the state of Kansas. So, yeah.
Which is fine. I just I have different desires.
And why Santa Barbara?
I have a cousin that lives there, and I think it was just kind of like the closest connection I kind of had. And then I tried to go to City College. That didn't last very long.
And for what?
What classes did I take? I took it for about one semester. So it's just like I always explain to people, like, I'm looking at flat cornfields and soybeans, and then I'm like supposed to be paying attention while I'm looking over like a 200-foot cliff of like tropical beach. Just like it's just too stimulated. And I took music, a vocal class, a video production class, just stuff I was already interested in.
Yeah.
So I figured out kind of quickly by myself. I was like, I'm already doing all of this.
And did you get into bands right away? Like, I know that you have a long musical history, but was that happening in Santa Barbara?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I met a lot of cool people, a lot of mutual friends, or a mutual friend we had. I met him there. We played a band. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of cool, so I was in some musical projects. I feel like I was actually just starting to get into my own, I don't know. I just started, after I got back from Santa Barbara, I started making different music.
And was it with this, it was Bisexual and Alec? A-L-A-K? Or is there two Zach Nelsons in Sacramento, California?
That was, that's a friend of mine, Jocelyn Solomon's project, which is really rad. And I think she's still making stuff around town. It's very unique and deep.
And is this something that a lot of people know about? Like, I know that local newspapers write about local bands. Like, people know who they
sometimes, I don't know. I'll check in with the local magazines, but I feel like a lot of my favorite music are my close friends. So I feel like I'm always rooting for everyone else. I'm like, no, I haven't seen too much written about them, but they should, But that's a lack. That's her project. And then her brother was in Bisexual as well. So I was playing in that band with a brother and sister.
And how did you two meet?
We didn't meet in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, we didn't meet in Santa Barbara. I left or something, and then he met a guy we know named Zach.
Yeah.
And then
we had a mutual friend who is from this area, and we met each other through then. Kind of around the time that I moved here, and I think you moved here shortly after.
And what were your first impressions of one another?
I think my first impression of Zach was through music.
Yeah.
I think that I was familiar with his music while I was in Santa Barbara. I really like Zach. He's a super prolific, creative artist, and I knew that before I met him. And I think we got along right away. Pretty much.
And did you ever envision that you would go into business with him?
Not at that time. Not at all.
No.
No, that came years later.
Yeah.
Like 9 years later.
So I get this. Did you stay in Sac? I know he moved around quite a bit after visiting.
Yep. I did stay here. Yeah. There was a small stint when I was in Santa Barbara, just on a temporary house sitting.
And Zach, you were moving around just because of bands?
I love your questions. You're good. This is really fun. Kind of, as I don't think I have to say this, as I don't really feel embarrassed, but just be, like any sense of like when things don't work out, like now I like that and I feel like it gives you strength, but usually I'll split town.
Yeah.
Like in the past, I've split town when I've been in a multi-year relationship. And it's just kind of like how I've dealt with it. It's just like, I'm a sensitive guy. So I'm just like, I can't even be in the same city. So I feel like I have two good families, like in Portland, Oregon, and here in California. Yeah. Mainly Sac. And like up in the hills too. I know a bunch of creative, weird wizards up there. And in the Bay, it's just like a cool location.
So now that you have a business, do you censor yourself from getting into multi-year relationships that way? You can't bail.
I feel like I've just started becoming a real life man in the past year and a half. And I feel like I've learned a lot of great stuff, and I feel like I'm really working on all kinds of stuff. So, if it was like unbelievably crazy magic stuff, I'd get into a relationship. But not now though.
I did a intro 2 weeks ago where I said I still don't feel like an adult. So what does manhood feel like? Because I'm still waiting.
Just kind of, it's kind of like a joke. I'm being hard on myself, but it's like I think I've spent so much time identifying with being kind of a bohemian artist, looking for. I don't relate totally to that. Mm-hmm. So I feel more like I'm thinking ahead and doing all kinds of things that you think are you just because you've related to that identity your whole life. So now it's just like, well, I don't have to do that. Yeah. I don't have to make choices or live like that. So it's like I'm thinking ahead in the future. Mm-hmm. And it's just like music is great and art is great, but you got to really spend a lot of time to make that a full-time gig. And it's like I don't want to just live super low key the rest of my life. I want to kind of want to get it over with. Work hard and get it over with now.
We'll get to the birth of the business here in a second, but I think it was like Impose that you wrote an essay that this business has taught you about patience and how long-term goals can pay off. And I just don't know how you would not learn that lesson in the music industry. Like, did you think that it was just going to be a quick rise in the music industry?
I think you want to hit that one?
Well, I think that was about the article you wrote in Impose, right?
Well, I feel like playing drums and being creative is super easy for me. I've never had a problem creating.
Yeah.
So once again, it's kind of like a switch around of what identity you choose to relate yourself to internally. Mm-hmm. You know, like what's going on with your choices in your mind. And I just don't. I feel like it's easier for me to do that. Yeah. So it's not really challenging. So to me, it's more of like a sweet treat of life, you know, or that's the way I like to keep it in my heart or mind. So I keep making music that doesn't sound super contrived and, you know, try to make it still make the hair on my arm stand up. Yeah. That's what I try to go for. So like, does that make any sense? Like it's really easy. So like
when I re-listen to this.
So like doing this stuff with Bobby, it's all new and it's challenging. Yeah. And the rewards are way, I think, heavier in a different way. Just because like I feel like when I was younger, I set out to do some goals with art and music and I accomplished them. So I know about failing and I know about succeeding. Yeah. And in that aspect, you know. So I feel like this is new and challenging and like the rewards are like real. They seem a little bit more real. And plus I feel like I know the formula you have to use to do that and become quote unquote successful. And sometimes I just don't feel like, or I'm not really super interested in that. Yeah. I make pop songs still with my friends and myself, but it's not like I'm doing it to. Of course, I'd like it to be successful, sure. Yeah. But it's not like I'm going to be super bummed out because I've already prepared myself or I've already experienced it. But this is just like getting in a co-op or getting in a new restaurant where tons of people are eating is just like, it's a whole new art form. It's beautiful. And a whole different group of people, you know?
Well, I find that out of all the musicians that I've interviewed, of course, they're entrepreneurs because that's the point of this show. But I find that a lot of musicians, after they tour for like 10 years, they go on a totally, completely different path.
Probably because it sucks.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I'm going to be 35. I don't want to sleep on a floor and I just feel like there's this like yearning for people to accept you or something. You know, it's either like, please accept me or I'm a genius and I'm going to just spray my music genius all over you or something. You know what I mean? Like you should be grateful for my genius. I feel like it's either one. That's pretty black and white. There is like expressing yourself and you should do that. Of course, I'm not downing that, but yeah, that's a weird mindset to get caught up in. Plus it's hard work. It's just kind of this weird work. It's just like, for what? a few weeks of stardom on Pitchfork. The reward's not good enough. I want to see the world.
So what's the reward of this business?
Multiple ones in my head.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through a few. I mean, it's a career, and it's a career at our own hands, which is definitely a big reward for me, I think, that we're actually creating something and making a modest living out of it.
Yeah.
That's huge. And it's creative for us. I mean, we're able to create new flavors, and there's that element that I think both of us really like take away from it, coming from music and other creative endeavors.
And you were both working at restaurants.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything about the creative process or taste?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Taste, definitely. I've worked in numerous coffee shops, and that definitely has helped me. I've always had an interest in tea and coffee and beverages. And definitely restaurants have helped with that as well.
And is what they're teaching in restaurants translate to making flavors, or do you think that both of you are reaching much more into the artist brain versus...
I think we're reaching internally for some of that stuff. I mean, I'm really grateful, like from what I learned, especially at working like at Magpie. I learned so much. I feel like I learned more about like what it takes to actually run a business from that. I think the experiments and the flavors that we create are definitely from that world that we're creating from.
Yeah, and I had the girls from Sun and Soil, right? And they're both former artists and continue to do art in their own free time, right? And I asked the question is this the new way for artists, right? So the old way was you either make it, and if you don't make it, you continue to serve at restaurants, and then you make art in your own free time. Do you think this is the new way for artists?
It definitely, I feel that way for me. It was hard for me to kind of sustain and get a career within sound or music or photography. I do feel a little bit more comfortable in terms of what we do in Zeal. And there's a bigger payoff of it. We're actually able to make this work. So I that definitely fulfills that niche that I want in a career, lifestyle, what we're doing, that there is that creative element that I do look for.
I think it's kind of like in your mind as well. It's the new way. If you say it is, it's kind of like a template or a choice of, do I want to pursue something that's fun and I get to be creative, but I have to play the game a little bit. I can't just kind of, it's not as, there's real work involved too, just like mundane grunt work.
Right.
That's not all like I said, I consider some of the arts really fun. And then you start getting, I don't know. Also, it's like, when you're playing shows, you're still trying, like, what are you doing? If you're completely content, you'd be playing at home. Yeah. Right. So the act of playing, to me, or putting out records is kind of a way you are trying to make a product, even though some people might not think that they're doing that, but I think that's going on too. You're presenting yourself. It is music and it is fun, but it's still like you're trying to generate a fan base, so more people come out and you feel good and it's awesome, and then you can sell a t-shirt, or you can get enough gas to go play in LA and see your friends, and so I feel like there's a way there, but it's, since so many people do it now, and that prices for gas are pretty crazy. You have other people looking for different stuff, and like I think like us, like most artists or whatever. See, I feel like everybody's an artist, though. I have a weird like, I get really semantic on stuff where I'm like, I think a plumber, an electrician, and a mother of four, you know what I mean? Like I think it's all like, if you call it an artist or not.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question. Let's say that this company is super successful, and because it's super successful, you don't have time anymore to make art outside of work. Would this still fill the same creative void, and would you be okay with that?
Oh yeah.
I think that's kind of what I'm experiencing now.
Yeah, it's already going on. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Most of my time is definitely spent with just, behind the scenes work, janitorial work, creating our schedule, just all the things that it takes to run this business, that I definitely have pursued creative endeavors less. But I do feel that this definitely fulfills that.
So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary, let's say, that art schools now require all artists to take an entrepreneurship class as a different path.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, even for pursuing of art, I definitely think that you need a little bit of business savviness in order to sell you as a product.
Yeah, those paintings aren't going to sell themselves.
Yeah.
Some people.
I mean, at some point, it's all a business. You know, and I think all those values still translate, whether you're selling art or a bottled beverage.
You know what I find hilarious about this conversation is the previous town I lived in was Asheville, North Carolina, and that's, of course, a big artist cooperative, right? And the business class that's taught in Asheville, they have to spend like 2 days explaining to everybody that sits in that classroom that money is not evil and business is not evil. Isn't business... Hasn't it always been the devil to the artist?
Well, it's not. I didn't make that up. So why should I feel like I didn't make that system up?
Yeah. Yeah. So when do you two get into kombucha?
I got into kombucha when I lived in Santa Barbara, probably like 2004, 2005, maybe. And kind of just made it at home casually. That kind of translated into brewing beer and mead and other sort of like fermented beverages. And
why was that cool to you?
I've always been into beverages. I've always loved beverages.
Yeah.
But there was definitely something about the transformation of like the fermentation that I was really intrigued by. And just the fact that you could use, especially with kombucha, you could use all kinds of different ingredients. I think it's a little bit more open than it is with beer. I mean, you need cane sugar for kombucha, but then you can flavor it with really any other ingredient that you want. That definitely interests me. And then just making something, that kind of craft mentality of being able to, craft a beverage at your home. And this was at a time when there wasn't really a whole lot of kombucha on the shelves either. Yeah. So it was great to be able to make that and have that around.
And did it taste good right away? Or were you just fascinated by the science? Like at one point in my life, I tried to make my own soda and I was like, this is pointless. Yeah. Because it doesn't taste good. So.
I think I always liked it. I'm sure that there were some batches that I didn't like. Yeah. And I would love to try some of that stuff now to see what I think about it.
It was good. I remember it. That's where I first tried it. He I don't know. I just remember this. We still have the bowl at our brewery. Yeah. He has this like certain bowl that he used. And I think he was using Earl Grey tea, which is cool because we have a flavor called Earl Noir. And I was just blown away. It's like sour, sweet, carbonated, like even beyond the probiotic stuff and how it's great on your stomach. It was like, even back then, I think, which I think we still talk about now, or it's kind of like, we're not trying to shove the health elements down to sell our product. It's just about making something that's kind of unique and tastes good no matter what. Yeah. Whatever label it is, it could be called Purple Rain or whatever. Doesn't matter.
Do you think that the companies that have existed before you, were they always about flavor or were they much more about health?
I think a lot of them have been about health. I would say the majority of kombucha companies are, at least that's a selling point of theirs. And that is kind of partly why we wanted to not have that be part of our selling point. Yeah. At least like on the surface of it. I like sneaking it in. It is probiotic and it is probably a good alternative to soda or beer.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to reach people who maybe aren't so concerned about that either. You know, like flavor is definitely important to us, and I want that to. And I think we both wanted that to be reflective in the way that the product is perceived.
And people, I think there's an element where it keeps growing, but like I think there's a type of personality trait that goes into the co-op and is intimidated. They're like, I don't even know what nutritional yeast is. I've never even thought about what I eat. I didn't know I could go buy this and just eat it raw. You know what I mean? There's like so many, I'm still learning all kinds of new stuff every day, you know, but like, I think when it has that new age type, well, not new age was like 70 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it now. Post neo new age.
Yeah.
Modern, modern diet. I think it could like kind of scare certain people away.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I don't want to float away to a crystal land. I just want it's like that's why I like what we're going for is simple. So it can appeal to more people, and you don't have to feel like you're in this club to where it's just like, we hear it all the time where people don't like kombucha. It's like, well, it's probably because you've had stuff that's really sour, maybe, you know, or too sweet, and people maybe don't like the flavors, but people like our stuff, I think, because of that, you know, that we wanted to make it taste good no matter what. I think some people sacrifice it. They're just like, well, it's good for you.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Which is interesting because I think that also happens in the microbrewery business. Like all the old breweries, when I try some of their standards and bestsellers, I'm like, oh. And then I go try some of these new school. I'm like, this is a much better product. Yeah. So is that your competitors? Is just people that have been in the market a lot and it's just brand recognition?
I think so.
I think more of it is us expressing ourselves more and more to bigger people rather than competitors. Because it's just like, we can't even really think about those people. I feel like you just have to keep expressing yourself and do what you want to do. But I mean, I guess there is competitors, but
no, I think that's a good point.
But I mean, this was a $600 million industry in 2015. Okay, which means that the big competitors are coming.
Oh yeah.
So when they do come to market, right? How do you think about that? Like, I think, and I don't mean this to be offensive because I really love your product, and I'm glad I started with you because I know that if I would have tried the old school, I wouldn't even attempted to try yours. Okay, but I think there could be a kombucha company right now in every city in the United States, just because kombucha is not known yet. But when the big boys do get in the game, how do you think about that?
They're in it. The Kavita.
Yeah, they kind of are. Like Pepsi, I think, is involved with Kavita.
They're dipping right now.
I know Coke was looking at it. I think it's great. I'm not one to have a famine mentality. I think there's enough to go around. And I also think that kombucha's in a weird state right now because of a potential for alcohol. That the more big players come in, the more that we can prove that this is a solid industry and that we do have best practices and safety when it comes to alcohol. I think all those things will help. Bigger players means that it's a big, sustainable industry.
And it means people are going to have to step up their creativity, I feel like. That sounds slightly aggressive maybe, but that's why I like our stuff. Or I like Townshends from Portland. You know, they have different ingredients. And like most people, I can't say that's a kind of a blanket statement, but it's neat to find out about new blends of herbs that are good for you. Because a lot of people, I think you just go to the doctor and they give you something, you know? They're like, oh, I didn't know I could get Eleuthero root or whatever and cure my joint pain or, you know what I mean? Or
There are a lot of small kombucha companies opening. I mean, I learn about new ones all the time. It seems like there is almost in every city, or at least major city, there are one to a couple.
And I was trying to think of a way to ask this question last night, but it just seems like there will be small craft businesses everywhere, and then a big corporation will figure out that there's money there, and then they start to die.
Yeah.
Right. So, which is depressing.
Yeah, it is. I think that, but there's, look at how beer, there's huge beer brewers and there's small beer brewers. And it seems like at this point that's working. Same thing with coffee,
do you think
restaurants.
Another thing, do you think one of those small companies would be depressed if they sold to a bigger company for a few $1 million? Do you think they'd be thinking about the other small craft breweries out there and how sad it is? No, they started a company and that's where I feel like you can get it if you have a certain attitude about playing this game or whatever, that it's just like, well, what are you playing the game for? Yeah. I'm doing it for beauty because I want to see the world. I don't want to just make money. It's boring.
And to get back to your origin story, you can correct me if this is wrong, but the sense that I get is you moved back to Sac in 2012. You're making your own kombucha as well. All of your friends totally dig it. His has always been awesome. So you reach out to him to start a business. Is that the origin story?
Pretty much, Bows, there was a place called Bows and Arrows. Yeah. And they reached out to Zach, told Zach, hey, if you could produce this commercially, we'll sell it on tap.
Legit. That's what they said.
Yeah. And
you get legit.
And that's kind of what started us talking about him. And I think in those conversations, we realized, hey, maybe we should do this together.
And what gave you enough confidence in that process to abandon what you were doing, which was making art and serving?
Yeah, I mean, up until actually at the start of 2016 was kind of when I quit day jobs. Yeah. So I still maintained a few day jobs during that time. So it was very small growth. I mean, I think it was just kind of making a choice. I had confidence in what we were able to produce. I knew that what we were producing even on our own was different enough in the marketplace and that there was a niche for it. And that coming together on a more professional level, we could probably even elevate that even further. That definitely gave me confidence and just kind of making that choice and really not looking back and continuing to take those steps necessary.
And the sense I got was whatever you made in the beginning, it was being sold. Like you couldn't make it quick enough.
Pretty much. I mean, we're still kind of at a point where we rely on, we're a small team. Yeah. And we're fortunate enough to where a lot of our growth is from people coming to us. We haven't really had to go out and sell our product all that much, which has really been great for us because we can really focus on producing. That's changing. And I know this year that will be different. But yeah, we were, I still remember brewing, 5 kegs at a time, 25 gallons and knowing that it was such an exciting feeling to know that okay, these 5 already have a home. We're already going to be selling those. We already know where those are going to go.
And what do you think led to that initial success? Or why are people coming to you? That's not normal, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it is, but I do think that there's momentum behind kombucha. Yeah. People definitely are interested in that as a beverage. I think we had some of that kind of helping push us along. And I really don't know what. I think it's delicious. I think that we were making some pretty good flavors.
We make stuff that we liked, and it's just you are kind of being a tastemaker. You're putting on a tastemaker hat and being like, this is, or I think we don't even do that. We don't have to say, this is why you like it. It's just here, try it. Yeah. Tell me what you think. And people are no, I don't like kombucha. It's happened tons of times, and that's really inspiring. That's why I've told this story so much. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah. But tons of people have said that. And they're like, oh, that's pretty good. And it's well, that to me tells me something. One, it tells me that they're trying a bunch of stuff that they don't like. So that means there's an element that, say, maybe it's too sour for people or so that's why I think it's a turning point for it as well, is that's just the way I imagine this, this ball collecting. It's rolling and collecting these companies and pieces are falling off. And it's just this, you know what I mean? So it's just it's developing constantly because it's new. And there's so many ingredients that you can have, and a lot of people are using fruit juice. So I feel like not like the strongest will survive, but maybe what sticks out. And it's it does matter. You can have the best tasting kombucha, and if your label looks like a psychedelic Target T-shirt or something, I don't know. I don't know what this, like some weird. You just look at some of the art, and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's all that stuff matters, and like you gotta have something interesting, and you keep going with that, and you don't make people feel bad like it's some post new age drink. It's just like, no, this is it's got lower sugar. How about that?
And for those people that don't know, you all don't make yours out of fruit juice, is that correct?
We don't use fruit juice in any of our flavors right now. We sometimes use fruit juice in other beverages that we make, but we really, those we may only bring out to like farmers markets or small places. And those wouldn't be kombucha. Those would just be like sodas.
And the standard in the industry at the time was everybody was making it out of fruit juice?
I would say still most people are using fruit juice. There are definitely a handful of companies, big and small, that are looking to get flavors from herbal blends.
It's delicious, though. I like it. It's just not what I want to. I don't know. It's like, it's too thick too. I think that's it's really simple that it's too viscous for me. I like a light, effervescent, kind of like light beer almost. Like, not to make it taste like beer, but the feeling of beer in your mouth, I think.
Well, what do you think it is about you two that led to that different thought process, right? So if you open a taco shop, everybody has the same 5 tacos. If you open a beer shop,
because we're artists
everybody
first.
has the same 5 beer flavor.
I do think that having a foundation in art has definitely helped with that.
Yeah.
For sure. Definitely.
So in 2017, if it does slow down, right, people coming to you, I see that you have 3 facets of your business. The first is the bottling, the second is the drafts, and the third is the farmers market, right? If people stop coming to you, how do you know which one to focus on?
Our focus for 2017 is bottles. Because we've right now we do the majority of our business draft. And we're in a lot of places in Sacramento via draft. But in order to really expand, we definitely, having that shippable product in a glass bottle that we could move outside of this region is definitely important to us.
And what does that look like? So are you saying Whole Foods markets across the country?
Well, I mean, definitely, we've made this choice to do kind of these small steps. So probably like more regional stores first.
Nugget maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe down to LA, or maybe California's huge.
Yeah, probably definitely kind of doing more of this region and then going to other parts of the states.
And what is persuasive to grocery stores?
That I'm learning that right now.
Yeah.
I like coming from a cafe and restaurant world. I feel like I know that world pretty well. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've done fairly well via draft in those settings. Yeah. But the retail grocery outlet is definitely a new world to me. And that's one that we are just really beginning to look into and to try to figure out those questions.
Are you in any grocery stores now?
The Co-op.
And what has been persuasive to them?
I think the product seems to be selling. So I think that works. I also think that the fact that we're a local company, I think that helps as well. But they go through a lot of kombucha. They definitely keep buying it.
It's not. I keep thinking that it's like a hype product, but it's been hyped ever since I've bought it in a store, and it hasn't stopped. Yeah, So it's like when you're seeing something on an end cap, right when you walk into Safeway, I think that kind of says something in a business world sense. It's like, look at all these drinks, right? When you walk into a huge corporate grocery store, it's all health food drinks. Yeah. And like at the Co-op as well, there's like 2 different refrigerators for it.
Well, you all definitely got the flavor thing going, right? So I love that. And then the other thing grocery stores look for is packaging. Right. And I think the third thing that I've learned from all the people that are trying to get their product into stores, it seems like everybody in Sacramento is doing that. So Preservation and Co. and the Burgers Brothers, et cetera, they want story. So entrepreneurs have to have some interesting story to attach to the label. So is that something that you've thought about?
It is, and I feel that we kind of are fairly vague in our product. We don't, and some of that's intentional, and I like a little bit of mystery. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we'll always do that, but I also kind of sometimes when I read some of those stories, I just kind of think like, oh, this is just to kind of sell a product.
Well, yeah, definitely.
You know,
right.
and I have nothing wrong with that, but that's just. I think we're at a stage where we're small enough where in some way we're kind of letting that up to the consumer to figure out. Mm-hmm.
But you could easily sell a story, right? A small farm boy in Southern Illinois.
We could sell it, but that almost
taking America.
That just makes it even better that we harness it and don't have to tell people about it. It's like we could tell them, we talk about all kinds of weird stuff all the time, you know? Mm-hmm. But I like, and this is, I think, a little bit more on my end, but I feel like I'm pretty impulsive and I have a lot of ideas going through my head a lot. And doing this company, and I feel like Bobby has a little bit more of a minimal approach. He can reel it in, and it gels well together. Or it's like taught me to kind of think about it a little bit. Like with the photographs, it's like in the past when I've put out music or something, it's just like every idea is valid and awesome just because I made it out of nowhere and it's crazy. And then now when I listen to stuff, it's just like, yeah, those are interesting ideas, but they're not bangers. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, I just think you should, if you're going to be presenting yourself, they should be top notch. Or it's like, why else you're giving it to people? Give someone a good, solid product, or let them decide, you know, like with the art direction. Yeah. I was just watching this documentary on a guy I really love a lot named Don Van Vliet, who's Captain Beefheart in the Magic Band. And the way he described his paintings was kind of neat. They were just like, why black and white? And he's just like, it's stark contrast and everyone else is going to put their own color in it. Yeah. He's like, that's for them. That's up to them, which is kind of neat. And it's like, it's kind of, I think it could be taken out of context and be like, whatever. But I don't think he means that. I think I like it too because it involves the person looking at it. It doesn't have them, it's not stated all for you in a nice little package like Star Wars movie preview. You know, you have to work a bit. Yeah. Or it allows you to like go, it's kind of more interactive, I feel like. Or it gives a respect to the audience in a way, too, that's not like, I'm going to make you see this. It's use your imagination. We don't need to have a 3-headed snake on the cover. It's a good product.
But that's hard to sell.
And it stands out, too. The minimal it stands out now, which is funny, too.
But that's a hard sell to grocery stores, right?
And we may learn that, and we may alter our course a little. Yeah, you know, if that does happen if that's something that we notice. Mm-hmm. But at this point, I mean, like, granted, it is like, you know, we're like, we do sell bottles at a few cafes as well, but it seems like the way our labels are, it seems like it's working. But yeah, when we branch out into maybe a market that isn't quite familiar with us, you know, we may need to kind of look at that. At that model that we've set up.
I think it works though. I mean, just because it is minimal. Everything else is so stimulating because everyone else is trying to overstimulate each other. Yeah. So when you stick this thing that's just like a square, something simple and that people have known, or a circle, you know, that's a shape that has been around for a long time.
Yeah, and there's like a personal discovery element too in it. Like you kind of have to, you know, like we have a lot of ingredients on that list that maybe some people don't know, you know, what they are. And so there's an element of you're going to take a chance and get this, you know, off the shelf and just go for it. And then if you want to know more about those ingredients, it's kind of at this point on you to find out what Grains of Paradise are, what, you know, Palo Santo is.
If you know how to talk to restaurants and if you know how to speak to cafes, Why aren't you just trying to tackle one city at a time? Or is it just too small of sales?
Well, no, I mean, the sales are great, especially with kegs. It's really the going into a different city via kegs is a little difficult for us. We have a finite number of kegs. We can get more, but we have a certain number of kegs. Mm-hmm. And the more that we extend those out into other regions, the more difficult it is to get those back sometimes. Whereas bottles, it's a one, we just drop them off and it's done.
And you'd have to find a bigger distributor?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we're kind of thinking about right now, whether we self-distribute or, work with a distributor or food broker or something. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're doing everything on our own. Kombucha Culture is helping us. We're kind of working with them in terms of keg distribution. They're a local keg distributor of kombucha.
And doing it yourself, you're buying the van and driving around California.
Exactly.
Through a distributor, what does that look like? They take like 10% off the top or what?
It's more than 10%.
Yeah.
It's more than 10%. But they're doing a lot of work too. They're finding the accounts, they're delivering it, they're holding on to it. Mm-hmm. At this point, it's working for us. It makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. And you see other local companies, I think, as well. I've seen, local beer companies that have stores in town distributing in town by themselves.
Yeah.
Instead of using I think there's 2 or 3 in town or something.
I guess the argument for distributors is if you don't like the sales talk, that's the way to go.
Like to self-distribute?
Well, if you don't like selling.
Oh, yes, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't have a problem with selling. It's just at this point, this is, we really just started bottling at the beginning of 2016, and it was very, very small. We were doing one bottle at a time, and it would take 20 to 30 seconds for each bottle. Yeah. And just recently we upgraded to a slightly more efficient bottling line. So we, that is a thing that we are looking at is a sales element. And that's kind of what we're working on now.
And I've heard in the past, right, if a distributor is servicing a bar, right, then that bar doesn't take any other independent stuff. Is that correct as well?
I think so. I think that can be the case. A lot of times distributors can, from what I can tell, can definitely persuade businesses to carry certain products. Mm-hmm.
So I found myself fascinated about your pine needle kombucha and the fact that you said it was so hard to make and that you had to go up into the mountains and harvest these pine needles. So tell me what that process looks like.
We work with a farm in the foothills, and we go up and collect organic pine needles from them. And we do it a few times a year. Mm-hmm. That's kind of part of the reason why vanilla pine is our 4th flavor to get put into bottles. Yeah. I think that probably is our biggest selling kombucha, maybe. It kind of depends, but it does seem like we sell a lot of that flavor. And having a reliable source of pine needles is huge for us if we want to start looking to get this into bottles and selling a lot more of it. Yeah. So we've kind of have held off until we could be sure that A, we can handle bottle production, and B, that we could get enough pine needles to actually make that happen. Because it is a process. We dry them out.
We usually get fallen trees too.
Yeah.
Just to let everyone out there on the internet land know.
Yeah. So someone has collected these for you, and then you get them?
No, we collect
you're
them.
physically walking out.
Yep.
Yeah. And is there something that you recognize on the forest floor? That's good. That's not good.
Usually, if they are already dried, it's quite good. Yeah. If they're dried out by the sun, it seems like that adds some really nice flavors to it. If we have to get fresh stuff, we can dry it out in our brewery, but it's not quite the same. There's something about sun-dried needles that are really nice. They're just less astringent when they're dried out, get more of that pine flavor in them. We're looking for certain varieties, usually Douglas fir or white fir. But we've tried a bunch of different needles, and they're all quite good.
And is that the difference between the grape and the tangerine flavor? Like, I've never understood that, right? So people tell me that coffee beans taste like tomatoes, and I'm like, no, they should taste like coffee beans. So how does pine needles taste like grape?
I think it's kind of similar to hops in a way.
Yeah. Do you think it tastes like grape?
What? I haven't had yours, vanilla. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I should have bought a bottle of that. I think it's kind of like similar to hops. There's like this overall hop flavor to hops, but there are definitely particular varieties of hops that have other flavor expressions. And it seems like pine needles are kind of similar. There's an overall pine flavor, but some are going to taste more citrusy. Some are going to taste more tropical, like guava. Some are going to taste kind of like grape skins.
Perfume.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place, and it does kind of depend on fresh versus dry, but also the variety of pine needles as well. And that's something that we've worked. I mean, like I think vanilla pine was one of the early flavors that we did, and we were using fresh needles in the beginning. We were boiling them. We experimented with all these different processes to get the best flavor and efficiency for us, knowing that right now we're producing 25 gallons of this, but if this is going anywhere, we're going to be producing hundreds of gallons of this. So what's the best flavor and what makes the most sense for our process?
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you know to stop? Are you still continuing the experimentation process?
With vanilla pine, I think we have that pretty much figured out. I think we have like that, the flavor and the pine needles. I think we know what works best for us. We're always still experimenting with ingredients.
Main flavors are good to have them dialed in.
Sometimes we'll work with spring tips, and we haven't, like we've dried some of those out. Spring tips are excellent fresh, so there's definitely room for that ingredient to, for us to experiment and more with. I think with that particular flavor, we figured out what works best for it.
And then, like, how do you know how many flavors to go after? Like, I look at kombucha in the grocery store, but I never read the flavor. I always assumed that it was the same flavor. And with restaurants, anytime that a menu is 3 pages long, I get nervous because I know there's no way they can execute all 50 dishes correctly. So how do you know when to stop in terms of?
That's something that we're figuring out. That's why, like, when we started bottling, we only had one flavor, red heather, and we had that for months. And then we introduced another flavor, and then in the fall, we introduced Earl Noir. So we definitely have been doing this slowly to see really what can we handle. I think we can probably handle a couple more. Yeah, but I definitely want to, and that's kind of great about the kegs is we can really kind of. Having it on draft and having it at these very supportive businesses, it kind of gives us an opportunity to experiment with new flavors and hone them in before we actually get them into the bottle. Because once we get them into the bottle, we really don't want to be experimenting with them anymore. They have a list of ingredients. Everything's kind of set. Kegs give us a little bit more freedom when we do things on draft. And we kind of use that as a kind of workhorse, like to workshop various flavors to get them into bottles. And I assume there's kombucha heads, just like beer freaks, that'll just try anything that's new, right? Yeah, definitely.
I think it's good not to overload it too. Yeah. Like if I mean, I like multiple choices, but I like the pace we're going, Yeah. Because we could come up with, I feel like if we sat down for a day, we could come up with 3 new flavors. That would probably be pretty interesting, but having those, it's like a good core family or something, like it's like you got mama, papa, baby, and second baby. Let's raise those kids, watch them grow up. I don't know.
Is it still just the 2 of you?
We have an employee. Yeah. In the spring, Nick started with us, and that's been great having an employee.
And what is it like to be an artist and be a boss? Like that, those 2 things never added up to me.
I think we're kind of figuring that out. Yeah. Still. I mean,
you gotta have a balance to be a friend and a boss. Yeah. To not be blinded by either side or something. I don't know.
And it's a small team, so it's definitely, we're when we work, we're in close quarters, and but it's been great. Nick, like I feel that we found a really great employee.
We're pretty lucky, I feel like. Because we're on the same page with a lot of stuff.
Is that something that you've mentally prepared yourself? Let's assume, guy, that you're successful getting into the grocery store and you have to hire like 15 employees. Is that something that you're ready for?
I think so. I mean, that's definitely something that I thought about when we first started this. I knew it would be a while. We went 3.5 years, I think, without an employee. So, but from the beginning, that was definitely something that I was thinking about and just kind of preparing for what that would be like.
So on this show, historically, we have learned that Sacramento has not been too business friendly in terms of permits and regulations. As someone that's making a relatively new product, I assume they have the people that were traditionally in charge of health regulations have no idea what your product is. So what did that process look like?
That process was pretty interesting. And getting into this, we decided early on that we were going to be a wholesale business.
Yeah.
And that kind of meant not needing the county and the city for anything.
So all of yours was state.
State, exactly. Yeah. And at the state level, when we got into this in 2013, I think we initially got some paperwork in 2012. Kombucha was still unknown to a lot of people. And even at the state level, they knew what it was, but they had to do their research before they came out to inspect us. But that process was fairly easy. I mean, it's a lot of paperwork. And
wasn't as scary.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. Now, if we were doing this in a retail level, I think it would be, if we had like a kombucha tap room, and I feel that we may have encountered a little bit more red tape in terms of like having a fermented product that probably people don't really know what it's supposed to look like, smell like, what the best practices are for it. But thankfully, because we've made this choice to be a wholesale business, we haven't really had to deal with that yet.
What does it mean to be an entrepreneur living here in Sacramento now?
It's pretty exciting. I think it's like there's a lot of growth in Sacramento, even in the last 5 years or so. It's really exciting to see, and it feels great to be part of that in a small way. Yeah.
What advice would you give someone that's reading articles that Sacramento is the next Oakland or the next Portland, and thus a lot of things are happening here, so they want to open a business here? What advice would you give?
It feels weird for me to give advice because I still feel like this is so early for us. But I do think that just do research probably. Yeah. I really don't know. I mean, I feel like there's so much stuff that we're still figuring out, that I'm still figuring out, and I think that's kind of one of them.
Well, Zach, as a former Portland resident, do you think that Sacramento is going to be the next Portland?
Do you want me to answer that question or the one before that? Because I got all kinds of stuff.
You can answer both.
The advice thing, I wouldn't think of it totally. Yeah, like he's saying, as advice, because I think everyone is constantly learning new things. That's life in general, right? But I think maybe not worrying about whether or not the next thing is next, or the word next, or anything to do with being the next anything. It's like, if you're, and I've heard people say this before too, and I think there's an element to truth, is that make the product or the thing that you want to the way you want to, and make it really good, and actually maybe try to discipline yourself to really not be hard on yourself, but be gentle and make something with a lot of quality.
Yeah.
Because then people will come to you and they'll sense you don't have to do a lot of extra legwork of please, please, because that feels kind of weird, So that's if I ever send music out, I'm straight to the point and short.
Yeah.
Here's what I've done. I really like what you do. If you want, give me a call back or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm not going, I began guitar in 6th grade and studied with the Cornfield University. It's make it, don't worry about being the next whatever, because the next, what makes a place the next it or whatever is that there's something already going on there that people are believing in, and it's attracting magnetism and stuff. I feel if you build it, they will come.
Well, you know what's going to happen, right? You're future employees 20 years from now are going to be like, we studied under these two dudes at Zeal Kombucha. Da, 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 da.
That'll be great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Who knows what who knows what we'll be teaching him by then? Who knows what me and him will know?
Mm-hmm. What does our lives look like if we become Portland? And is that a good thing?
What does becoming Portland mean? Just having a lot of business?
Hell if I know, but it's a marketing device that our city loves to use. So
I'll be going up there in about 8 days.
Uh-huh.
So I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
I'm flying up there for real.
Okay.
Ironically, or not ironically.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really irony. It's just a coincidence.
Okay.
I've lived there twice. My friend said it's different. I think the picture I'm getting is that I feel like I've been talking about this. Like, stuff's coming from like the underground, and it inspires people. Like I was saying, it like magnetizes because people are doing something and it's new and it's counterculture, so it seems. And then the food truck thing, that was popping off when I lived there probably 5-6 years ago. And then that was popping off probably a few years before that in another city. And then everybody, what I think's interesting is that if you kind of zoom out, you'll see that it's happening all over the place. And that's just a phenomenon of like a good idea or a cool YouTube video. It's like everywhere. So it's just like, boom, food trucks. But you also have to be aware, like, when it's ran its course. Like now I don't think I'd open up a food truck. Maybe somewhere that doesn't have a bunch. Yeah. But it's just like, there's that cool food truck on 95th, and then it's just like, there's 15 food trucks to choose from, and I can't even, there's a food truck for like a banana, different ways to prepare bananas, and like, I don't know, it gets too many decisions. I feel like, but it's like, it's getting popular from underground stuff, and then it just gets played out. Yeah. And then people get mad, but that's what happens. You don't start a business if you don't want people to come to it and think it's cool and get inspired by it. You know, you got to be aware that that's a possibility too, you know? I would imagine if you're starting a business, you'd want it to grow. Yeah. Biggest fear in running the business? I try not to have any fear.
I think...
Just kidding.
I mean...
Sort of.
Like, failure is definitely a fear. I try not to operate from that. But there is that element.
It's frightening.
There is still some unknown elements with kombucha. Like I do know that in some states, like the TTB has told kombucha brewers to stop producing. Yeah. In Colorado, this happened earlier in 2016. Is that because of the minimal amount of alcohol? But yeah, the potential amount of alcohol in it. And just people not really knowing, the people who write because it's coming from the TTB, so it has a little bit more to do with taxes than actual like health and safety issues. Yeah. I don't foresee that being an issue in California, but it's definitely, I guess it's a potential. When you two are having a tough day, right? Things are frustrating. What do you envision yourself doing instead? Like, man, I really should have been a teacher instead, or a firefighter. I haven't had that thought yet. It hasn't got that frustrated, I think, where it's like, man, I wish I was doing something else. I still love doing this. And that's kind of, I think for me, if in those moments that are maybe stressful, that's kind of what helps me in those. Is that there's some momentum with this that we're doing in it that feels so positive that's an easy thing to fall back on for me.
And to know that you're going to be okay, and that you can, if you think of things in a certain way of this is making me stronger. Like learning how to deal with this frustration a different way each time, to me, makes me feel like my personality is stronger. So you have to face that frustration on a very personal level too. What do you see as the finish line? So 40 years from now, you will all sell or walk away. Before you sell or walk away, what does it look like?
I haven't given that much thought, and I really don't know.
Yeah.
I definitely am in this to see how far we can push this. I don't, at this point, that I don't even know. I can't even conceive of a finish line at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe because it's still kind of relatively new and we're still in the beginning stages of this.
And it's kind of an abstract idea too. The finish line could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or it could be, you know what I mean? I think there's so many elements.
There's more like to this that I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I guess that question is more of a motivation question, right? So, like, sometimes people think, well, I'll have a restaurant in every town, and then when I retire, I'll have enough capital to be on the beach.
Yeah.
It's nothing that you all think about in terms of driving you on a day-to-day basis.
Not for me, really.
Yeah.
I definitely, I'm enjoying what I'm doing now, and I hope I can do it a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
I like it now.
Yeah.
At some point, I'd like to maybe go to another country and see some more parts of the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of neat places I'd like to see.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be for like a few months or... I'm kind of curious in how your psychology is after a year of not having to worry about certain things that you didn't set up in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's a weird nervousness in people that I kind of feel like I want to win over. And that's like, I don't not want to work. I want to do backbreaking work on property that I own, building my own house, or like, gardening or exercising or, rowing a boat.
Mm-hmm.
I like that kind of work, but they're spent by the time they're 60, and then it's like I can fast forward and meditate on that, and I feel like I can feel that emotion. It's just like, I don't want to have that. I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be 70 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's expensive here. I think that's another reason. It's just like, I could live in a tropical rainforest and eat delicious food for about $1,000 a year. And I at least want to try it for some point. I don't mind working hard though. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are like elements where it's just like, I kind of want to know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm. Do you two consider yourself a success?
I think we're successful. This is crazy for a few people to do and for friends. And this is like a relationship too. So it's like, there's a lot of elements that I feel successful in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like, and I feel like your own personal version of success changes too. So now, like, doing this stuff, it's like art and music to me. I feel relaxed. I'm like, I am successful. I'm not on a billboard or like, having product placement in my music video.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already... I mean, if Doritos wanted to give me $150,000 to crunch on a Cool Ranch, like in my music video for 1 second, I'd have to honestly think about it. But
would you swig it down with a kombucha?
I'd swig it down with an ice cold Pepsi. I'd swig it down with a nice Surge or a crystal clear Pepsi or a Mr. Pibb Extra.
Mm-hmm. How do you want your business to be remembered by Sacramento?
We mean remembered.
So when you all perish,
okay.
Sacramento thinks of Zeal as
quality beverage with interesting ingredients, interesting flavors, unique flavors.
Unique flavors, unique ideas, unique beverage boys.
Okay. This one might be a little weird question for you because usually it's for businesses that are regulated by the city of Sacramento. But we'll see if it works. This is a two-pronged question. What can Sacramento do to help your business, if anything? So from a community perspective and then from a government perspective.
Yeah, I think that one is kind of difficult because we really just don't deal with, I mean, the only real thing that we deal with the county, is just like taxes elements and then like dealing with permits for like events and stuff. But that's all fairly easy.
Well, let's expand that to the state.
I mean, even that has been somewhat easy for us.
Yeah.
And fairly, I mean, that really is, I had no idea going into it. Just, I mean, there are elements that the state kind of makes it easy for small businesses to at least get a foot in the door in terms of, like maybe not requiring nutritional facts labels on anything under X amount of units a year or something. That whole process was fairly easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I like if and when we ever open some sort of tap room or something, I may have a completely different answer to that question. At this point, though, it's been a fairly easy process with some hoops, but a fairly easy process.
Sacramento can help our business by giving us $700,000.
Okay. The first city-owned business in Sacramento, other than King's Arena.
Yeah.
Okay. One lesson you've learned since opening your business that you wish you would have learned at the beginning that would have made your life easier.
I don't want to blow it. That's God.
I feel like I've learned to have more like outward confidence in our product, which I think that's kind of helped. In the beginning, not really, when we started this, we didn't really, we had one place that wanted to, buy our product.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've learned that process has helped me learn to have more confidence in our product in terms of selling our product to people. Yeah.
Okay.
Thinking of others' happiness. I think that's that can fit into business and then your personal life that can make the business better. It's like being aware of other people in general.
And how did that play out in business? I can understand how that plays out personally.
Just like, like thinking maybe, well, I want it to be a certain flavor when we bottle it. Yeah. That's like kind of more about me and Bobby's taste of what we like and what we want to present. But say maybe you have to think, well, other people seem to like it this way. Yeah. And it's just like it's an expression of ourselves, but it's a relationship. You can't just be expressing yourselves all over people all the time. I feel like you have to, or that's the way I want. I mean, it's like I feel like that's the way everything works. It's a contraction and it's coming back. It's like, here's an expression, but I want you to like it because it helps us too, So I think giving people what they want is a good thing.
Okay. 2 throwaway questions before I get to the final question. The first, I noticed in that article you talked about because you don't use fruit juice, it's less sugar. As someone that every time I go on a diet, it's always low carb, right? So does your product specifically work into something like that?
There is sugar in our product.
Yeah.
But there is definitely less sugar than a lot of other beverage drinks, bottled drinks on the market. The sugar thing is tricky because sometimes, like, I think that when you add fruit juice, you don't have to really add that into the nutritional facts. There's like a loophole with that, kind of. I think that's changing, but
yeah.
So, I mean, we're honest about our sugar content. That's why we don't technically need nutritional facts labels on our product because we sell such a small amount.
Yeah.
But that was always important for us to have that transparency with consumers. Mm-hmm. I want people to know there is sugar in this drink. It's definitely less than other things, but it definitely is there.
That's where I would use like the probiotic kind of knowledge against that stuff would be. Yeah. There's 12 grams of sugar in it, but it's been fermented and it's alive. Yeah. It's not just like a stale corn syrup.
Right.
40. I mean, I can't remember it. Root beer and ginger ale are like up like 42 grams.
Yeah.
Like this is 12 grams. And this is just coconut water. Product placement.
Yeah.
I didn't say the brand name, but it's in this type of can.
Yeah, I think the fermentation does kind of pre-digest some of those sugars. So I think there's probably benefit to that as well.
And how many people ask you in your life whether or not you're related to Michael Ian Black?
Oh, I have gotten that a handful of times.
Is that from Kids in the Hall? Who's that?
No,
comedian. He was in the State.
Yeah. Oh, the State. Okay.
Yeah. All right, last question. One thing that fascinates me about the internet is when something is on the internet, hypothetically, it's on the internet forever. So is there anything that you would like to say to your future self 20 years from now, or each other 20 years from now?
This is to our future selves and to each other?
Yeah.
20 years from now?
Yeah.
That's a funny statement, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
If I'm always in now, I would have no perception that 20 years had passed.
You were the first one that has thought way too hard about this question.
What do you think about that question, man?
I'm excited that we made it this far. And I definitely am excited to see where we are in 20 years.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, like, great work. Good job. Keep up the good work. I love you. Keep on being nice to yourself and other people. Yep. Grateful.
Okay. Anything else that we did not talk about that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I have anything to bring up.
Okay.
I think we covered quite a bit. I can't really think of anything. I'm sure I'll think of something later.
I thought we talked about a lot of good stuff.
Where can people find you?
Your
product.
A lot of cafes. The Mull, Insight, Identity, Mother, Shine, Old Soul, East Bay, Drake's Dealership, Highwire. We have a complete list on our website. Co-op has our bottles. They also sometimes have us on draft there.
Placerville Co-op.
Yep.
Totem Coffee in Placerville. Good Earth Movement in Placerville.
I think there's about 24 places on tap and growing. Oh, Pushkin's.
I was getting ready to say
Pushkin. Their new restaurant. Mm-hmm. They have us on tap there.
And zealkombucha.com?
Zealkombucha.com, exactly. We're on Instagram at Zeal Kombucha.
Zeal Tonic, too. Zeal Tonic.
And you should be proud of yourself. There's several articles out there on the internet that there was companies that tried to take the name Zeal, and then they noticed that there was a company in Sacramento that had the name Zeal. So
really?
They go with that. So congratulations.
Excellent.
There's an article. There's articles about that.
Yeah, it's like page 30 of Google results, so it takes a while.
Excellent. I'll have to check that out.
All right. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, y'all. A couple of things before you take off. First, if you want to make sure to get a new episode of Finding Sacramento each week, be sure to subscribe to the podcast through whatever listening platform you're using to listen to the show, whether that be iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or one of the other million podcast apps. And while you're there, go ahead and rate it and let me and others know what you think of the show. according to random computer equations that I don't understand, that apparently lets other people find the show. And as a bonus, if you send me a screenshot of you rating the show to findingsacramento@gmail.com, I will send you a Finding Sacramento bumper sticker. That's right, free swag. Second, if you're into being social with your screens, be sure to follow Finding Sacramento on all of the various social media platforms. For example, if you ever wondered why I can't seem to lose weight, follow me on Instagram at Finding Sacramento. Or if you want a little surprise in your Facebook newsfeed that isn't your parents' political values, then like the Finding Sacramento Facebook page at facebook.com/Finding Sacramento. Third, if you have suggestions for future guests on the show or want to be a guest yourself, shoot me an email at findingsacramento@gmail.com. And finally, if you like the show, tell your friends. And if you don't like the show, well, as they say in the South, oh, bless your heart.